Buckluster. Please explain the extraordinary work ethic that is apparently instilled in every Scientologist. Surely such a character trait is to a large degree an issue of temperament. Does Scientology somehow overcome this? Or perhaps lazy people simply don't last long in Scientology? Does this issue somehow relate to the Scientology ethos of helping the able to be more able and screw everybody else? Is that a fair characterization? Well, again, I think you're talking mostly about the Sea Org versus your regular run-of-the-mill Scientologists, because your regular public Scientologists and even most staff aren't really that hard of workers. I mean, the staff more so, sometimes the staff really go the extra mile, but they go home at night. They, that sort of thing. They have, they have regular jobs because of the duty and that sort of thing, and they put in a lot of extra time. So don't get me wrong, I don't mean to put them down, but it's a whole nother level when you get to the Sea Org, and I think that's what I'm looking at in a comparison, is as hard as you work as a Scientology staff member, and you do that for duty, you do that because you think it's the right thing to do. You think that being in Scientology and working that hard, hours-wise, at least the number of hours you're working, is you're doing that because it really is for a greater purpose. And it's kind of like that, again, only kind of on steroids when you get into the Sea Org. And it is true that people do come in from various temperaments, to various levels of ability to work. And if you're just kind of a naturally lazy person or have a tendency to slack off a lot, you're not going to make it in the Sea Org. They sort of weed those people out when they're still in the boot camp process on the EPF, the Estates Project Force. That's kind of what that's there for, is to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff, And so, generally, if somebody doesn't want to work hard, you can't get through the EPF if you're not willing to run and work and scrub and take orders and deal with a lot of nonsense, and I guess similarly to a military boot camp. Then when you get done with that, that's just the beginning. Boot camp is rough, as I understand it. Now, I, of course, have never been in the military, so if I'm getting this wrong, I'm just talking from my understanding of it and what I've seen in movies and heard from friends and family who were in. So, as I understand it, once you're through boot camp, things get a lot chiller in the military. It's not as rough anymore. I mean, unless, of course, you get into combat or something. Of course, that's a whole other thing. In the Sea Org, the point I'm making is that once you're done with the EPF or their version of boot camp, you then go and start working. It gets rougher. Like, the hours are longer. The work is more demanding. The screaming and yelling is much more intense. And the punishments are way more intense, right? You can find yourself, within a couple of days, if you say the wrong thing to the wrong person, or are not getting your job done, you can find yourself up till 2 or 3 in the morning scrubbing pots in the galley, and and good luck on getting any sleep that night, right? Or you could be up, again, sleep deprivation for doing any number of things, right? The physical sort of punishments and whatnot can, they get pretty creative with that stuff. So all of that could be going on within days of you finishing your EPF in the Sea Org. So it's definitely expected that you will be working really hard, and if you're not, then you're going to have to go through these punishments until you get your butt in gear and start going, is sort of the mindset there. And if that's something that's intolerable to a person, and they lose the purpose or the drive or whatever, or they don't want to be there anymore because they think it's all a bunch of crap, then they what they call they go on decks. They go on the decks. They hit the decks, meaning they are asking to leave, and they have to go through that whole process, right? Which took me like 9 months to go through. But you go through that process, and then they let you go, right? Or, of course, people just blow. They leave. They just take off. And if you do that, well, you're not going to be doing any more Scientology for the rest of your life. So that's sort of the options that you have there. So basically, I think that work ethic that gets instilled in people, if they feel that duty and that drive to do this thing, to do this Scientology thing and clear the planet, then they just kind of get used to working real hard all the time, and not having any privacy and not really having any, a whole lot of personal time, and like I said in that earlier answer, kind of putting everything else aside. Everything else is less important. Family, sex, friends, like all that. Put it to the side, because that's other fish. It's other fish to fry. You got other fish to fry. And in the Sea Org, you don't get away with having other fish to fry.